Imagine a world where distance no longer matters. A world where, in the blink of an eye, you can be anywhere on the planet. What if every human on Earth could teleport instantly? No vehicles, no airports, no traffic jams. Just the sheer power to appear anywhere, anytime. The impact would be nothing short of radical, transforming transportation, urban living, global economies, and even the very way we interact with one another. Yet, in this world of limitless freedom, would we be opening the door to unforeseen challenges and security risks? Teleportation, the stuff of science fiction, could forever alter the way we live. What if one day every human being had the ability to teleport instantly? The implications would stretch far beyond the obvious, unraveling the very fabric of how society is built. Cities, economies, and cultures would adapt in ways we can barely imagine. Gone would be the need for cars, planes, trains, or any form of traditional transportation. People could live anywhere, work from any location, and experience the world in ways previously thought impossible. But with this immense freedom comes the burden of new societal issues, security concerns, privacy invasion, and changing social norms. Could we embrace this new world without losing something vital in the process? In this alternate reality, the world would transform before our eyes. But the question remains, would we be able to adapt to this newfound freedom? Or would the freedom of movement come with its own set of boundaries? With the ability to teleport, the very concept of transportation would be revolutionized. Imagine a world where you no longer need to worry about flights, long road trips, or crowded subway stations. Instead, you simply teleport wherever you need to go, instantly and without any form of travel infrastructure. The traditional transportation industry, as we know it, would be turned on its head. The first major shift would be the disappearance of vehicles. There would be no need for cars, buses, or even bicycles. The highways that once carried millions of commuters would become obsolete. The global airline industry, which serves billions every year, would face collapse, as the need for planes and airports disappears. In an instant, anyone could travel across vast distances, whether it's from one country to another, or from one continent to the other, without the need for long, exhausting travel times. This massive change would also create a domino effect on industries dependent on transportation, logistics, shipping, and even tourism. Global shipping companies, which rely on sea and air freight to move goods, would either vanish or completely transform. Goods would be able to teleport directly to their destination, instant delivery, without the need for shipping containers, cargo ships, or freight trucks. Warehouses would no longer be necessary for storing goods, as everything could be moved on demand from anywhere to anywhere, in the blink of an eye. In the case of tourism, the traditional model of travel, with its hotels, resorts, and guided tours, would shift dramatically. People could teleport directly to their destination, eliminating the need for the long planning and logistics involved in organizing a trip. No more waiting in line at airports or enduring hours on cramped flights. Instead, tourists could experience places immediately, visiting landmarks, enjoying local culture, and exploring the world as if it were all at their fingertips. What would it mean for places like Paris, New York, or Tokyo if anyone could visit them at any time without the usual hassle of flights and accommodations? The travel industry would either evolve to offer new experiences or face a significant decline. One of the key societal consequences of teleportation would be the disappearance of the concept of distance. The world would no longer be divided by the constraints of geography and physical barriers. What once took hours or days to traverse would now take seconds. Urban planning would change dramatically, as cities would no longer need to be built around transportation hubs. There would be no need for congested city centers or sprawling suburban developments. People could live wherever they wanted, even in remote areas, because transportation would be no longer limited to the constraints of physical movement. Cities, roads, airports, and other traditional infrastructure would be repurposed or abandoned entirely. Moreover, environmental concerns tied to transportation, like carbon emissions from cars, planes and ships would become obsolete. With the instantaneous movement of people and goods, pollution from traditional transportation methods would drastically decrease, potentially reversing some of the damage done by industries that rely on fossil fuels. However, new challenges would arise. The teleportation of goods and people would likely create a new type of congestion, but this time, not of traffic on the roads or in the skies, but of the space-time continuum. What happens when millions of people try to teleport into the same space at the same time? Could the system of teleportation be overloaded or exploited in ways that cause disruption? Would teleportation be restricted to certain locations or require licenses as governments seek to manage the flow of people? In this world of instantaneous travel, the idea of place and distance would lose its traditional meaning. While cities would still exist, they could become hub-free zones, with virtual communities and workplaces forming without any concern for proximity. Else, the very fabric of human interaction would change, as connection would no longer require physical presence. The world would feel smaller in some ways, but the absence of physical travel might also strip away the emotional connections that travel and exploration have traditionally fostered. Would people still appreciate the journey, or would the magic of travel be lost when distance no longer holds any significance? With transportation no longer a limiting factor, how would urban spaces and the design of cities evolve? What happens when people can teleport without worrying about commuting or travel time? Could cities become decentralized, or would a new kind of spatial organization emerge? With teleportation making traditional transportation obsolete, urban planning would undergo a profound transformation. The very idea of city layouts, infrastructure, and population density would change, as people no longer need to live close to work, school, or amenities. Instead, cities could become more decentralized, spread out and reimagined to suit a world where distance has little meaning. First, let's consider the centralization of cities. In our world, cities are designed to concentrate people, commerce, and activity in specific areas. People live near their work, transportation hubs, or shopping districts because it's convenient and necessary. But in a world where people can teleport instantly, these reasons for centralized urban spaces vanish. Commuting becomes irrelevant, and people can choose to live anywhere they like, whether that's in a remote countryside cottage, an isolated mountaintop, or an urban skyscraper hundreds of miles from their office. Cities could become more like virtual hubs rather than physical ones. Think of a city as a place to meet, collaborate, and experience culture, but not necessarily to live or work. This would dramatically change the need for congestion in city centers. Instead of being packed into crowded areas, people could live in scattered environments, creating a more distributed population. You could live in a peaceful village while working in a global corporate hub, meeting colleagues instantly via teleportation whenever needed. With cities becoming less reliant on traditional transportation infrastructure like roads, airports, and train stations, the need for expensive urban sprawl would also diminish. In many parts of the world, urban sprawl has led to overcrowded conditions, traffic jams, and pollution. But in this new world, the demand for large-scale urban expansion could fade. Instead, cities could be designed as compact hubs, focused on community engagement and localized industries that complement the ability of residents to travel instantly to any part of the world. Urban spaces could also become hyper-functional, with multi-use buildings that cater to a wide variety of needs. A building could house both residential areas and office spaces where people teleport to and from as needed. Rather than separate zones for work, play, and living, these environments could blend workspaces, social spaces, and leisure zones into one holistic experience. The traditional office, for example, might no longer be a physical space at all. Virtual workspaces, combined with physical teleportation, could allow for on-demand collaboration whenever, wherever. However, decentralization could also bring about new challenges. With the ability to live anywhere, cities could become disjointed, with cultural and social isolation on the rise. While people could easily visit each other, would the sense of community remain? The need for public spaces, parks, squares, and gathering points might diminish if people are constantly moving and teleporting. Instead of coming together in physical spaces, society might rely more on virtual platforms and instant messaging, potentially eroding face-to-face connections. Additionally, the impact on housing would be significant. In cities where land and space are at a premium, teleportation could render traditional housing markets almost irrelevant. With people able to live anywhere, property values could either plummet in areas once considered prime real estate or skyrocket in more desirable locales. Would the global housing market stabilize? Or would inequalities in teleportation access lead to new forms of class divides? Would cities with limited teleportation access become urban deserts, while teleportation hubs thrive? Urban planners would need to account for new forms of space usage, but also potential security risks. The ability to teleport into any building or private space means that privacy concerns would be paramount. Buildings might require security teleportation restrictions to prevent unauthorized access. And encrypted teleportation pathways could become a necessity to protect against theft, espionage, or invasion of privacy. Physical security would no longer be enough. Digital security would need to integrate with teleportation technology to ensure that people could safely use their abilities without fearing intrusion. Would cities become borderless, where international cooperation was the norm, and people flowed freely between different parts of the world? Or would teleportation lead to a fragmentation of societies, with different regions evolving their own teleportation cultures, possibly creating new forms of cultural elitism or digital divides? The question of urban design becomes more complex. Would cities become more technologically driven environments designed around instant access to everything, but without the emotional connection to place and community? Would humans still find a sense of belonging in a world where they could teleport anywhere? Or would the desire to reconnect with physical spaces become more pronounced as the human need for roots and history would continue to thrive? With the traditional constraints of cities and infrastructure fading, the global economy would evolve alongside these changes. Instant teleportation could lead to rapid 24/7 global trade. But how would this shift affect industries, workforces, and the distribution of wealth? Could teleportation truly make the world smaller, or would it deepen the divides between those who control the technology and those who don't? Teleportation would have an immediate and transformative impact on the global economy. As the traditional constraints of distance and transportation evaporate, industries that depend on long shipping times, supply chains, and physical trade routes would undergo profound shifts. The concept of global trade would be rewritten, with goods and services capable of being moved across the globe instantly. But with such power comes a range of economic consequences, both positive and negative. The collapse of traditional shipping and logistics at the heart of this change. Industries like shipping, freight, and logistics would be radically transformed. Today, the movement of goods across the world depends on long-distance transport. Ships, planes, trucks, all of which have significant costs in terms of time, money, and environmental impact. But with teleportation, goods could be instantly transported to any location, rendering traditional transportation and warehousing unnecessary. The global supply chain as we know it would unravel. Companies no longer need to maintain factories in low-cost regions or distribute products via global shipping routes. Businesses could produce goods anywhere in the world and teleport them directly to their customers. This would create an environment where the concept of global trade becomes more instantaneous, while reducing the logistical costs and carbon footprint associated with traditional trade. But it could also lead to the collapse of industries built on shipping infrastructure, creating mass displacement in global economies reliant on ports, trucking, and airline logistics. The rise of localized production. In a world of teleportation, localization could become the dominant trend in the global economy. Instead of outsourcing manufacturing to distant countries, businesses could set up microfactories or production hubs virtually anywhere. Goods could be created on demand in any part of the world, and customers could teleport them instantly into their hands. This shift could democratize production capabilities, allowing anyone with the right resources and technology to participate in the global economy without needing access to costly infrastructure. However, the impact on employment would be significant. Industries built around traditional manufacturing and distribution would either disappear or evolve, creating new jobs that are focused more on technology, data management, and teleportation security. The need for physical labor in sectors like transportation, agriculture, and manufacturing would sharply decrease, leading to job displacement and a restructuring of the labor market. New economies based on teleportation access, while teleportation could bring about instantaneous trade. It could also exacerbate inequalities in global economies. The wealth gap could widen significantly between those who have access to teleportation technology and those who do not. Regions or countries that have exclusive control over teleportation devices could monopolize global trade, while areas without this access could fall further behind. This could lead to the rise of teleportation hubs, regions that become critical centers of global commerce and innovation, where the rich and powerful control the flow of goods and services. Economic power would no longer rest in cities built around transportation, infrastructure, or natural resources. Instead, it would shift to the companies and governments that control teleportation technology. New types of digital wealth, based on the ability to move goods, information, or even people instantly, could emerge. Corporations that control teleportation systems or networks could wield unprecedented power in the global marketplace, making them central to economic decision-making. Workforces and labor markets would be transformed as well. Teleportation would not only shift the way goods are transported, but how people work. The rise of remote work in our current economy could evolve into a new form of global workforce. People could teleport to meetings, conferences, and even work remotely from anywhere in the world without the need for a commute. In fact, the global workforce would be truly borderless. If you wanted to teleport to another country for a business meeting, you could do so in seconds, radically shifting how international businesses operate. However, as industries like transportation, delivery services, and tourism decline, new sectors would emerge. Teleportation technology would require maintenance, regulation, and development, giving rise to new job sectors focused on teleportation safety, security, and network management. Governments might also require teleportation passports or travel regulations, introducing an entirely new area of teleportation law. Inequality and economic disruption. The profound impact of teleportation on the economy wouldn't be all positive. While some would benefit from global access to products and services, others could be left behind, without the need for traditional supply chains. The entire logistics workforce could be displaced, leading to high unemployment in regions dependent on these industries. The rise of teleportation hubs could concentrate power and wealth in certain parts of the world, leaving others in economic disparity. Countries without access to teleportation technology could experience severe economic stagnation, falling behind the regions that control teleportation networks. The effects of these changes could be felt globally, with some countries thriving in the teleportation economy, while others struggle to maintain relevance. The impact on global trade relations and diplomacy would also be profound. Teleportation could remove the need for international borders in the traditional sense, but it could also create new economic divides between those who have access and those who do not. With teleportation transforming the global economy and reshaping industries, how would social interactions evolve in this world? Would instantaneous travel lead to greater global connectedness, or would it create a disconnect between people and places? Would the shift in personal space, privacy, and social norms redefine what it means to be truly connected? In a world where humans can teleport instantly, the very foundation of social interaction would be upended. The ability to appear anywhere, at any time, would create both opportunities for deeper global connection and profound challenges related to privacy, boundaries, and personal space. Social connectivity versus physical proximity with teleportation. The concept of distance would no longer play a central role in human relationships. Long-distance relationships, whether familial, romantic, or platonic, would be fundamentally transformed. The emotional burden of separation from loved ones, whether in different cities, countries, or continents, would no longer exist. People could visit family members or friends across the globe, without needing to wait for holidays, long flights, or expensive tickets. However, the immediacy of teleportation could also have negative consequences. If people could teleport anywhere, the value of physical presence in relationships might diminish. Would being physically present still carry the same weight when the act of visiting someone no longer requires time, effort, or planning? Social rituals like traveling for special occasions, birthdays, weddings, holidays, might lose their significance. People could choose to be with their loved ones at any moment, but would that make these relationships feel less meaningful or special? Teleportation could also blur the lines between work-life balance. With the ability to instantly attend meetings or work remotely from anywhere, would the concept of downtime or personal space be redefined? If people can always be in the same place as others, both physically and mentally, would the feeling of boundaries erode? Would the constant availability of loved ones or colleagues become overwhelming? The very idea of privacy could be altered. Having control over when and where you are seen could become an ever-present challenge. Shifting social norms and boundaries. When everyone can teleport, the concept of boundaries shifts dramatically. Traditionally, people and places are separated by physical space, and we establish personal boundaries based on these limitations. But in a world where teleportation is common, anyone could appear in your home, workplace, or private spaces at will. The ease of instant access to people could make it difficult to maintain private spaces. Would home invasions and unauthorized teleportation become new forms of crime, as individuals or even groups exploit the ease of access? Laws and policies governing teleportation rights and privacy would need to evolve to protect individuals' ability to control their personal space. Socially, strangers could potentially appear at any moment, causing a shift in social norms around trust and security. What would it mean to meet someone new in this world? Could you ever truly be sure of a person's intentions if they could appear at your door uninvited at any time? How would societies adjust to the loss of physical boundaries and the constant potential for unexpected encounters? Moreover, hierarchies in society, based on age, position, or class, could be affected. If everyone could access each other instantly, what would this mean for the concept of authority or power? Would people with greater resources or technological access exploit teleportation for control? Or would it be democratized, allowing equal access for all? How would elitism be defined in a world where power isn't based on geography or wealth tied to land? Impact on family and community life. While teleportation could enhance the ability to maintain close relationships, it could also disrupt the traditional concept of family life. Families spread across the globe could now come together at will, but the concept of family cohesion might change. Intergenerational living might decline as parents, children, and grandchildren can teleport to see each other whenever they like, rather than living in close proximity. Would this newfound freedom of travel create a disconnect between the family unit, making people less reliant on daily interaction? Or would it allow for more meaningful, spontaneous connections? Communities, once built around geographical proximity, could transform into virtual or teleportation-based networks. Physical neighborhoods might become less relevant, as people could form global communities based on shared interests rather than location. Would localism, the sense of belonging to a specific place, still hold value, or would it be replaced by global interconnectedness? Would community building still be about shared spaces and physical experiences, Or would it focus on emotional and virtual connections where teleportation removes the need for physical neighborhoods? While this instantaneous access to others could lead to stronger global bonds, it might also foster social fragmentation. With the ability to teleport between communities or groups of people, people might increasingly become disconnected from the places they live and the people around them. In this world, would people still develop deep ties to their local culture or geographic heritage? Or would the world become increasingly homogeneous? Psychological impact. The psychological effects of teleportation would be profound. On one hand, people might feel a sense of freedom and empowerment, knowing they can be with family and friends at any time, or take part in activities globally without restrictions. Yet, the constant access to anywhere and anyone could also lead to feelings of instability or a lack of grounding. Would people still feel a strong connection to their physical environments, or would they lose the sense of place altogether? Could the sense of belonging or home become diluted when physical space no longer defines it? The loss of distance could also bring about existential questions. Would teleportation lead to a diminished sense of purpose or direction? Without the need to travel, journey, or physically experience the world, would life's milestones lose their significance? The act of traveling and the anticipation it brings could become just another ordinary occurrence, reducing the wonder of seeing new places or meeting new people. With the social and psychological impacts of teleportation in mind, we must now examine the most pressing concern in this new world: security. If anyone can appear anywhere at any time, how would society protect itself from the vulnerabilities of such instant access? What legal frameworks and technologies would be necessary to ensure safety and prevent abuse of teleportation? The introduction of instantaneous teleportation would bring about an unprecedented array of security challenges. The ability to travel anywhere in the world in an instant might offer incredible freedom. But it would also create massive vulnerabilities, not only for individuals, but also for societies at large. The concept of borders, personal spaces, sensitive areas would no longer have the same significance. And new forms of security would be essential to regulate and protect society. Challenges to national security and borders. One of the most immediate concerns would be the loss of national borders as we know them. Currently, physical borders are a fundamental part of security infrastructure. Governments control access to their lands through immigration laws, customs checks, and passport controls. But with teleportation, these borders would become irrelevant. A person could teleport across the world at will, bypassing any border or immigration checkpoint without detection. Traditional border security would be rendered useless. Governments would be forced to create entirely new methods of border control, ones that would need to be digital, virtual, or based on advanced teleportation regulation. Teleportation networks might be regulated or restricted based on geographic regions. For instance, governments could establish teleportation checkpoints or teleportation passports, where only authorized individuals could teleport to or from certain locations. These measures might include biometric scans, identity verification, or teleportation time. Stamps to control and track movement. Military bases, government buildings, and sensitive areas would also need new kinds of defensive measures. If anyone could teleport into a high-security area, how could these spaces remain safe from intrusion or attack? Security personnel might need teleportation detection systems to sense incoming teleporters. Yet, even with the best technology, the constant threat of unauthorized access would create a level of vigilance that might be exhausting and pervasive. Privacy and personal security. Beyond national security, individual privacy would also be at risk. The ability for anyone to teleport into your home, office, or any other private space would create an unprecedented security nightmare. The concept of personal space would no longer be defined by walls or boundaries. Could teleportation technology be used to invade privacy by anyone with the ability to access it? How would individuals protect their private lives if anyone could simply appear in their living room? New laws and regulations would likely emerge to prevent teleportation-based crime, such as teleportation, trespassing, teleportation theft, or teleportation assaults. These crimes would require a new form of teleportation law, governing when and where teleportation is allowed. Individuals might be required to lock teleportation paths or restrict access to certain locations, with government oversight ensuring the safe use of the technology. Security systems would need to be more sophisticated, possibly requiring teleportation encryption or personal teleportation shields to prevent unwanted access. The ability to teleport could also open the door to teleportation-based crimes like theft. What happens when a criminal could simply teleport into a bank vault, museum, or private collection to steal valuable goods? The ease with which someone could rob or infiltrate secure areas would likely lead to new forms of security technology that could track or block unwanted teleporters. Cities and private properties might employ teleportation locks or teleport zones to create barriers against unauthorized access. Surveillance and control. In this world of teleportation, surveillance would take on a new meaning. Governments and corporations could develop teleportation tracking systems, monitoring where and when people teleport. While this could potentially enhance security, it would also introduce new forms of privacy, invasion, and state control. Could governments use teleportation data to monitor citizens, track their movements, and enforce laws? The ability to instantly track someone's whereabouts could shift the balance between freedom and state control, potentially leading to authoritarian systems where privacy is severely compromised in the name of safety. On the corporate side, teleportation-based commerce might lead to mass surveillance as businesses track customer movements and purchasing habits. As people teleport to stores, offices, or entertainment venues, companies could collect data on their preferences, behaviors, and choices in real time. This could usher in a new era of targeted marketing, but also raise questions about consumer rights and data protection. Potential for misuse and teleportation. Related crime. As with any powerful technology, teleportation could be easily misused. While it offers incredible benefits, it also presents the potential for widespread abuse. The ability to teleport into restricted areas could empower terrorists, criminal organizations, or rogue states to gain access to highly sensitive locations or materials. Criminals could teleport into secure locations, steal valuable assets, or even terrorize individuals with ease. This presents a dilemma for governments. Should teleportation be heavily restricted, or should individuals be trusted to use the technology responsibly? A global teleportation treaty could emerge, setting international rules and agreements on teleportation rights. But this would be a difficult and controversial undertaking. There could also be attempts by certain groups to monopolize teleportation, controlling its use for personal gain or political power. A new form of warfare. In addition to the security threats that teleportation poses to individuals, it could also fundamentally change the nature of warfare. In the absence of physical borders, militaries would have to find new ways to secure territories and defend against invasion. If an enemy force could teleport directly into a city's heart, defending cities would be nearly impossible. This could lead to the development of teleportation defense systems or military teleportation networks to ensure that teleportation is restricted in certain areas. An invasion becomes nearly impossible. The idea of battlefields and combat zones could become abstract. Could countries form teleportation alliances, where the collective defense of their teleportation networks would protect them from external threats? Warfare might evolve into cyber warfare, where the goal is to disrupt or control teleportation systems, effectively controlling access to regions, countries, and resources. With the growing challenges to security, privacy, and military defense, what would the long-term societal impact of teleportation be? Would the widespread freedom of movement eventually lead to global cooperation, or would it give rise to new forms of social division and control? Would the promise of an open world be tainted by the complexities of its own power? In a world where teleportation is not just a possibility, but a universal reality, humanity would experience a profound shift in how we view space, time, and human connection. The freedom to move instantaneously could be both liberating and destabilizing, creating a new era of global interconnectedness while also presenting risks of societal fragmentation and increased surveillance. The collapse of distance at its core, teleportation would cause the very collapse of distance. The idea of being separated by physical space would seem absurd in this new world. Social, political, and economic barriers built around distance, such as national borders, time zones, or the need for transportation, would no longer be as relevant. While this could bring the world closer together in some ways, it could also erode the concept of place. People could live anywhere, but would they feel a sense of belonging to any specific place? Would home lose its meaning when you could teleport to any location on the planet with the flick of a thought? The cultural and emotional significance of physical places might diminish as people are no longer confined to a particular geography. Could this erode local cultures, traditions, and even history? Would people still value the significance of the communities they come from when instant movement became the norm? The very idea of community could evolve, becoming more fluid and less anchored to physical locations. But would that result in a loss of identity and heritage? New global connections. One undeniable benefit of teleportation is the potential for stronger global connections. The ease of access to any place and the ability to instantly be with anyone would create opportunities for our unprecedented cross-cultural exchange, collaboration, and understanding. Physical distance would no longer be a barrier to education, business, or personal relationships. The world could become more unified, with individuals from different corners of the globe able to collaborate and learn from one another at the speed of thought. A global workforce would emerge where geographical limitations no longer divide countries or regions. Ideas, cultures, and expertise could be exchanged more freely, perhaps leading to collective solutions to global problems like climate change, poverty, and disease. With instant travel, cooperation could become the cornerstone of human progress, and barriers that once separated humanity could disappear, replaced by a shared sense of responsibility and opportunity. But with global interconnectedness also comes the risk of global control. As previously mentioned, the gatekeepers of teleportation, whether they are private corporations or governments, could gain significant power over how people access the world. Could this newfound mobility end up concentrating wealth and power in the hands of a few? Those who control teleportation could effectively hold dominion over the world's resources, making access to teleportation a form of privilege or even entitlement. Instead of erasing inequalities, teleportation could create new forms of economic disparity. Psychological impact of instant mobility. The ability to teleport might initially seem like the ultimate freedom, but the psychological impact of such freedom could be unsettling. If distance no longer holds any power over relationships and decisions, would humans begin to feel more isolated or detached? The anticipation and journey associated with travel, whether for business, leisure, or personal connection, could be lost, reducing the value of movement itself. Travel, once a significant part of life's experiences, might become mundane, making the world feel smaller and potentially less magical. Similarly, in a world of instant travel, what would time mean anymore? In a traditional world, time is measured in hours, days, and weeks spent traveling. Teleportation would eliminate the very notion of waiting. Would this lack of delay lead to a society that struggles with patience and the very human experience of anticipation? Could this make people more impatient or less present in their daily lives as instant gratification becomes the norm? Furthermore, the pressure to be available at all times would grow. With teleportation enabling instant access to anyone, everywhere, would people feel constantly on demand? The idea of taking a break or finding personal space would become more challenging. Barriers between personal and professional life blur. Mental health might take a toll, as people struggle to cope with the lack of physical boundaries and the endless potential for connection. Would the constant ability to be everywhere make it harder to feel truly at home anywhere? Governance and control in the teleportation era. Governance in this new world would be both simplified and complicated by teleportation. On one hand, instant movement could allow for easier communication, real-time decision-making, and global cooperation. But on the other hand, managing a global population that can appear anywhere at any moment would pose significant challenges. How would laws and regulations be enforced? Would countries enforce teleportation zones, or would laws be universally adopted to manage teleportation traffic and security concerns? For nations, control over borders would likely be replaced by control over teleportation access. The power to restrict or monitor who enters or exits a country would lie with teleportation authorities, the gatekeepers of this technology. This could lead to new forms of digital surveillance, where individuals' every movement could be tracked in real time. What would it mean for privacy in this new world? Would teleportation companies or governments monitor and track all teleportation activities for security purposes? Governments might also be tempted to restrict teleportation as a means of maintaining order, perhaps only allowing it for specific purposes, such as work or emergency needs. This could result in a teleportation elite, where access to the world is controlled by those in power, leading to a new form of inequality based not on wealth or geography, but on access to movement. Final reflection: a world transformed by instantaneous movement. In the end, the world of instant teleportation would be a place of immense freedom, but also profound responsibility. The ability to move across the globe at the speed of thought would change how we connect with each other, how we live, and how we experience the world. Yet, it would also bring new challenges: the erosion of privacy, the displacement of traditional industries, and the rise of global inequalities tied to access. The ultimate question for humanity in this new era would be whether we could embrace the promise of teleportation without sacrificing the values that make us human, our need for connection, community, and space to call our own. Teleportation would undoubtedly change the world, offering unparalleled freedom and opportunities. But as with any powerful technology, it would come with consequences. What do you think? Would the freedom of teleportation lead to a more connected world? Or would it create new divides? Could we handle the power of such movement, or would we become overwhelmed by the loss of boundaries? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us for more thought-provoking discussions.